Yeah, I'm not seeing Kung Fu Panda 4 this weekend, nor am I seeing Imaginary since I really have no interest in seeing either of those movies. But there is a movie out this weekend that I was interested in, so I did watch it. So let's review that. Damsel. So Damsel is a Netflix original movie. It's based on a novel, which I didn't even know that until like yesterday. For the longest time, I thought this was an original concept. So there's that. So Damsel is a medieval fantasy, and it's about Princess Elodie, played by Millie Bobby Brown. She comes from a poor kingdom, but she's married off to a rich family. At first against her will, but she eventually does end up liking the dude. So things seem to be working out. Happily ever after, right? Wrong. Turns out Elodie has become the latest victim in this long-lasting traditional ceremony, where after these women marry into royal blood, they are thrown down to this chasm where they then become dinner for a dragon. But Elodie is not gonna die today. She's gonna use her resourcefulness and Lara Croft her way out of this situation. Now, this movie was kind of a funny ride watching it, because the first half hour I'll say, it's the setup, and I was watching it I don't know if I'm feeling this. It feels kind of lame. The acting and the dialogue both feel kind of stiff. But then once we're actually thrown down into the cave, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I actually started enjoying myself. This movie ended up being pretty solid. I mean, Millie Bobby Brown is a really good actress. We all know this. And I will say it's nice for once to actually get to hear her use her authentic British accent. But yeah, it was cool to see her channel her inner Tomb Raider for a movie. Cause that is what this movie reminded me of. When you have a young British girl in this desolate environment and she has to rely on her wits and her will and resourcefulness to survive, yeah, think of Tomb Raider. Not a bad thing, of course, because Tomb Raider's awesome. So whenever I get to see something like that and it's pulled off well, that's a win in my book. And I thought it was pretty cool in this movie. She finds different things around this cave. There are different tunnels that lead to different areas. There's a point where she's climbing up this tunnel of crystals. I'm like, I've played levels like this in Tomb Raider. It's cool. There are other actors and characters in this movie. Ray Winstone plays her father, Angela Bassett plays her stepmother, Nick Robinson from Love, Simon, he plays the prince that she married, and Robin Wright plays his mother. But all their roles, they really are minor, and they are supporting characters compared to Millie Bobby Brown. This is her movie. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that the only other really important main character in this entire movie is the dragon, which does make sense since the dragon does have a voice. It's a speaking part, and the dragon is actually really cool in this movie. I like the dragon's design. I mean, first of all, you don't really get a good look at the dragon until at least halfway through the movie. She is kind of treated like Smaug in the Hobbit movies, where at first it's you get a glimpse of the dragon, it's in the shadows. That's really cool, it kept me in suspense. And then once you finally get a good look at this thing, you're like, all right, cool design. This dragon is not nearly as big as Smaug, it's a fraction of the size, but still a great character nonetheless. And I loved how her voice was done too. It is that kind of low, Smaugish, gravelly voice. Crank up the bass for this movie. Where this movie does falter, I hate to say it, is some of the visual effects. I'll say sometimes the movie looked pretty good. You get a view of this big castle, you're like, all right, that CG looks great. And sometimes it actually did look like they shot on location, which I'm sure they did in a few instances, and that was really cool. But unfortunately, there are more instances where the visual effects were not so good looking. Like a scene where they're on a boat out in the middle of the ocean, and you can easily tell that they're in front of a blue screen. Or how about that scene I mentioned earlier where she's climbing up the crystals? The crystals, they did not look like crystals. They looked like prop plastic crystals. At least to me, I was like, come on, that's the best you could do, prop department? And the reason that these subpar visual effects bog this movie down so much for me is because it makes the whole movie feel grade B, if I can say it like that. In other words, it makes it feel like it was made for TV. I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but judging just from watching it, I imagine it wasn't any particularly mind-blowing amount of money. It could have been, I don't know. I'm just saying from watching it, it doesn't feel like it. And that, plus the movie's length, which is an hour and 50 minutes, yeah, that's another factor that contributes to the whole made-for-TV feeling, is that it's less than 2 hours. That being said, though, I actually really liked the story in the movie. I liked every single direction it decided to go. And of course, I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but I do want to give it props for the story's decisions. I mean, is it predictable? Yeah, but I commend it for not playing it safe. The movie actually goes ahead and takes those risks. It actually says, no, these consequences will happen. It doesn't panic and play it safe like a lot of Disney animated movies do, for example. I'll compare it to the end of Frozen 2, right? The end of Frozen 2, the curse is lifted and this big tidal wave is heading towards Arendelle. And some people might think, all right, the consequences of your actions. You lifted the curse, but it cost you your kingdom. And that could have been something that Elsa and Anna and everyone had to deal with. But no, it played it safe. Elsa came in to the rescue and blocked the whole tidal wave with her ice magic. I'm not knocking the end of Frozen 2. I am glad Arendelle's okay. But that is the prime example I do think of when it comes to Walt Disney Animation playing it safe with their story decisions. This movie Damsel doesn't do that. It's like, no, consequences. They are real, they happen, and they are opportunities to learn for our main characters. I praise that. That's really good writing. As for the musical score, it's nothing special. In fact, I hardly really noticed anything about it that's unique. It's serviceable, it's fine, it's really not even worth mentioning if I'm being honest. Sorry, David Fleming. But in the end, I actually ended up really enjoying Damsel. It's nothing groundbreaking. Like, I don't see this movie breaking any records anytime soon, but I give props to its story. The movie just has a charm to it. What can I say? I guess I just like watching Millie Bobby Brown get to channel her inner Lara Croft for a movie. I will say though, the last act, it does, escalate the story. I was having a good enough time just watching her being Tomb Raider. And then for the last act, the story escalates, and at first I had to think about it. I was like, do I really require the story to do that? But I ended up being okay with it because what ended up happening was actually pretty cool. The subpar visual effects are this movie's biggest flaw. That plus its on the shorter side runtime do kind of give this movie a grade B feel at times. But if you happen to be okay with that, just know that going in, you'll have fun with this movie. I'd recommend it. Check it out on Netflix. So Damsel, have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And what's your favorite Netflix original movie of all time? That's a good question. Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go listen to Eternal Sunshine again. That's Ariana Grande's new album. I think it's pretty cool. Nothing special, but wicked. So I had to listen to this, Peace!